Okay, Minister of Foreign Affairs and CARICOM Affairs, Minister Francine Barron, Baroness Patricia Scotland, Secretary General of the Commonwealth Designate, Ms. Lolita Applewhite, former Deputy Secretary General of CARICOM and former Barbadian diplomat, Dr. Lucretia Gabriel, member of Baroness Scotland's team, and of course the representatives of the media who are here, staff of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. A very pleasant good afternoon to you, and we are very pleased this afternoon to be here to welcome home a daughter of the soil, who incidentally was born in my home village of St. Joseph. Baroness Scotland, as we all know by now, was voted in as Secretary General of the Commonwealth on November 27th and will be sworn in 2016. But today we are here to welcome Baroness Scotland, and we are very pleased, of course, to have you here in Dominica today. At this time, we will listen as the Minister of Foreign Affairs gives us a few brief remarks.
Good afternoon, and I want to acknowledge the presence with us of the Right Honourable Baroness Patricia Scotland, the Secretary General Designate of the Commonwealth, and the distinguished ladies with her, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs staff, the media. Good afternoon. I want to take this opportunity to, on behalf of the government and people of Dominica, and on my own behalf, to welcome in a special way Baroness Patricia Scotland. She is one of us. She is the Secretary General Designate of the Commonwealth of Nations, and she is returning home after what has been a long, hard campaign. And we are extremely pleased with your success, and we congratulate you on this tremendous achievement. We also welcome her loyal supporters and team members who have accompanied her every step of the way on her journey. Their advice, encouragement, support, and good counsel were invaluable. And so we welcome Lolita Applewhite, her sister, Dr. Lucretia Gabriel, and Teresa Marshall, who will join us on Monday. And of course, there are so many others who have helped her along the way. And they cannot be here, but they are not forgotten. They include her sister Hazel, Janet Charles from the High Commission in London, and Dennis Marshall, and many others. Many of you may not be familiar with Baroness Scotland because although she was born here, she migrated to the United Kingdom with her parents at a tender age, as many of our nationals before and since have done. Although Baroness has lived and worked in the UK all of her adult life, she has undoubtedly remained a child of the Caribbean and has held firm to the values of hard work and perseverance that we all instill in our children. Baroness Scotland, as the PS has indicated, is the daughter of an Antiguan father and Dominican mother. Her mother came from the village of Vieques, but as you heard, she was born in the village of St. Joseph. Baroness Scotland has family in Dominica, Antigua, St. Lucia, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago. She has pursued a dynamic career in law, public service and politics, and has been instrumental in shaping and implementing projects in the UK, the Caribbean and Africa. I think no one can dispute that Baroness Scotland is incredibly accomplished. Those of us who know how difficult it was for people of color to succeed in the United Kingdom in the 60s, 70s, and 80s will appreciate the determination that it took for a woman born in Dominica of Caribbean parents to qualify as a barrister and go on to become the first black and youngest woman ever to be appointed Queen's Counsel. We all celebrated in the Caribbean when she became the first female Attorney General of the United Kingdom. And of course, at that time, Antigua claimed her as one of theirs and embraced her achievements. And so really, it was a no-brainer for the Honourable Prime Minister to put forward Baroness Scotland for the position of Secretary General. Despite the detractors, PM Skerritt knew that Scotland was the person who could attract the consensus of the Commonwealth, who had the experience at the highest level of government, and who was familiar with and sensitive to our needs, and who could best represent the interests of the developing and the developed world to the benefit of all of us in the Commonwealth. And so we should recognize the vision and foresight that Prime Minister Skerritt had in that regard. But of course, you are here today to hear from the Right Honourable Baroness Scotland herself. So I would, without much ado, hand over to her so that she can speak with you. Thank you.
Well, firstly, can I thank both the Permanent Secretary and the Honourable Minister Francine Barron, because neither of them have spoken yet about their own stellar support throughout the whole of the campaign. And you will see that the Prime Minister was supported by some phenomenal women. And as a result, you can see what good judgment he had. But I really do want to give Prime Minister Skerritt all my warmest thanks and appreciation, because he, through thick and thin, remained faithful to his own vision, and he had support from those around him to keep faith with me when others may have wanted him to go another way. So no one should take away from him the fortitude, the courage, and the determination he had to remain true to his word. But as the Minister has said, I am a femme Saint-Joseph. And so when people looked at the degrees, I think they forgot where I came from. I was born in the small village of St. Joseph, and everyone in Dominica knows you don't mess with femme Saint-Joseph. And that remained with me. I want to thank too, if I may, someone who is no longer with us, but who was always very dear to me. And that is the former President of our country, Nicholas Liverpool. I first met Dr. Liverpool when I qualified as a barrister and came home for the first time, way back in 1978. I came to be called in Dominica, having been called to Antigua. And Dr. Liverpool was always a light then, and he remained a light throughout my whole career. I miss him dreadfully, but he was a great support to me. He gave me courage, and I want to thank Mrs. Liverpool, because after he passed, she remained a great tower of strength to me, and I know to many people in our country. It is the most enormous privilege to be asked to represent your country, and Dominica is my country. It's where I was born, it's where my mother came from, it's where my family have been for generations. And you will know that my mother was born in Delaford, and her family came from Viecaz. Edward Liblin was my cousin, and Rosie Douglas was my cousin too. So if I'm not Dominican, I'm scared to know who is. So we have come a long way. Some people think that we are too small to have had so many honors placed on our shoulders. We already have the great honor of having the Secretary General of CARICOM. We have PAHO, and now we have been graced with the Commonwealth. But the Commonwealth is of 53 nations, and I am conscious that although my heart will always be Caribbean and my soul will always be Dominican, that I will serve my region, the Commonwealth, and others to make sure that we deliver what we can to make our world a better place. And I am very conscious of the huge honor that has been paid to me. And I want to take this opportunity to thank all of those who've helped me. I am deeply grateful to Dominica, deeply grateful to all the good people of Dominica who have supported me right the way through. And I'm also deeply grateful to my team, my small team of faithful, trenchant women who never gave up on me. And they were Caribbean from across the divide, because we had Trinis, we had Barbadians, we had Dominicans, and you have to remember, I'm an Antiguan too. I'm sorry, but it's true. So all of us came together to make this happen. And I'm very, very, very grateful. But we know there are huge challenges for us. I have been appointed by the Prime Minister as the Disaster Relief Coordinator for Dominica, and there that we can and should now do. We know that COP21 is going on right now in Paris, and we hope that they will make the right decision. But right here, we have an opportunity to deliver change in Dominica, and I would like to assure everyone that my and the Prime Minister, the Foreign Secretary and the whole government are going to do everything we can to make sure that our beautiful nature island restores itself and gives to the people of Dominica that which they truly deserve. So I am over the moon to be home, and I can't wait to see all my friends and the rest of my family. And may I say, may God bless Dominica, because if someone asked me, who was your campaign manager? And I said I had the best campaign manager in the world. He was with me every step of the way. And others said, can we have the campaign manager too? And I said, he's there for everyone, because we know in Dominica that we survive by the grace of God. And if God had not wanted this for us, it wouldn't have happened. So I'm going to give credit where credit's due, to my Prime Minister, to my government, but I'm going to give the most credit to God, because without him nothing would have been possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Baroness. At this time, we will look for questions from the press.
Hi, I'm Joanna Hector from the Government Information Service. And without preempting Monday's activities, can you give us your response to the Vegas Primary School being named after you?
I was so touched and thrilled. I very rarely cry, but I really wanted to, because I can't think of a greater honor to be given to anyone. Everyone knows I love children. Everyone knows that one of the biggest things I want to do as Commonwealth Secretary General is to improve the future of our young people. 60% of the Commonwealth is going to be below the age of 30 by 2030. So our vision, our hope, our aspirations are all for our children. So to have a school named after me in Viecaz, which is where my mother comes from, is something that I will treasure for always. And I can't think of a greater honor. So I'm greatly touched, and I want to thank everybody who came up with that as a wonderful idea, because you couldn't have done better. Unless, of course, you said St. Joseph.
Curtis Matthew from DBS Radio. I would like to find out, going to the Commonwealth, and I really mentioned the children. Are there other agenda items for you as head of the Commonwealth?
Well, there is. You know that 2/3 of the Commonwealth is made up of small, independent, developing states, of which we in Dominica are one. There is an innate vulnerability for that, not least because many of us are seen as middle-income countries. And yet we have an innate vulnerability, which is created as a result of climate change. And we saw that right here in Dominica on the 27th of August. The year before, we had had an increase in our GDP of 4.5%, and that was something that we rightly celebrated. We had good roads, we had bridges, and I can't tell you how wonderful it was to arrive at the airport and have smooth road all the way from Melville Hall into Roseau. And we thought we were really improving. Well, within 6 hours, we were devastated. 90% of our GDP has been affected, more than $500 million worth of damage. And that happened within one day. So that just shows the vulnerability that is inherent in our islands. So there is a real issue for us to look again at how you calibrate that vulnerability, how you make it clear that although we may appear to be medium income countries, we still need to have that vulnerability looked at. That's one of the major issues, I think, for us. And COP21, where we are looking at climate change, is of pivotal importance. If you look at the number of incidents we have had in the Caribbean, but also look at the Pacific. These issues are of critical importance, and they are things that are going to be right up front of my agenda. So it is about climate change. It's also about good governance. We have big issues across the world, but particularly in the Commonwealth countries are developing and affected by issues of corruption, because we now have trillions of dollars being skimmed off, which affect poor, vulnerable people. I think there's an opportunity for us to share best practice, to look at what works, and enabling us together in partnership to collaborate to make a difference. And as I've already indicated, there's issues in relation to children. There's also issues in relation to women. 1 in 3 women in our world are affected by domestic violence. It's the greatest cause of morbidity in women and girls. And when I was working on this issue in the United Kingdom, I was able to create an approach which worked to reduce domestic violence by 64%. Now, I want to do that for every country in the Commonwealth. Can you imagine how much better our world would be if we reduced the violence? In the UK, it was 1 in 4 women, 1 in 6 men, but it affected 750,000 children. Now, those children are going to be affected for the rest of their lives, and this is the whole world. And unfortunately, we know in each of our countries, we have the same problem. So what I manage to do in one country, I want to do at home. I want to do for all of us. So there is so much for us to do, but what I know is none of us can do anything if we try to do it on our own. It's not going to work. It'll take every single one of us, government, local government, civil society, church groups, religious groups, individuals, all of us working together. But what I also know is if we create these partnerships, if we think collectively, if we collaborate, we can do it. I managed to reduce domestic violence and to reduce the cost by £7.1 billion. I think we could do that here. I think we could do that throughout our region. I think we could do it for the 53 countries. So there's masses of work for us to do. And the most important thing I've been doing is talking to people. Every single country I visited, I've asked them, what's your top 3 things? What will make the difference for you? And I'll be doing that for our region. If we want to look at success, what are the 3 big things that we together want to do by the end of the 4 years? What will success look like for all of us? And then to ask each of us the question, if that is success for all of us, what am I going to do as an individual to make that happen? And that is something that each person in this room and each person listening to this is going to have to ask. Not what is someone else going to do? What are we going to do? What am I going to do to make this happen? And I think we can do it. I really do.
Let me just ask you another question. As a former Attorney General of the UK, the Caribbean islands and other countries have been making a case for...
Well, the thing is, you have to know that I'm in a fantastic position now. I represent 53 countries. And what I have to do is to listen to what the 53 countries have to say, and then I have to do my job. Do you know what a relief that is, not to have any opinions of my own anymore?
Is that something you support?
I'm telling you that I will listen to every single country, and I am not just the Secretary General for the Commonwealth for one region. I'm the Secretary General for 53 countries. And so you will know that if the Secretary General of 53 countries speaks only on behalf of one region, that's no Secretary General. So I am starting, and I'm going to listen to everyone. One of my major jobs is to listen, to collaborate, to think about how I can bring people together across the 53 countries so they can come to an agreement. I'm not starting any fights. I have a lot of oil to pour on troubled waters, and I have a lot of listening to do.
Let me just ask a last question before my friend come in. It has to do with Caribbean governments asked to either amend or introduce laws to reduce the discrimination against the lesbian and gay communities. Is that something that you probably can take up? Is that they're looking for you for relief? The community is looking for you for relief? Is that something you'll take up?
Well, I have made clear that the 53 countries are sovereign countries. The Secretary General has no ability to change the law of any state, and that is fact. We also have, though, the Charter, the Commonwealth Charter, which is an aspiration for every single member. And we will work together on that charter to make sure that we all encourage and enable all our countries to seek unity on that. And I am absolutely clear that all the countries are going to be looking at the World Bank data, which says that if you want to be truly wealthy, you have to invest and create social capital. And that social capital has to allow every individual to give of their best. So am I going to be encouraging people to think about, am I going to be dictating to anyone? No. I need to walk with people, and I'm going to do a lot of listening.
Okay, my name is Idona John Baptist from Marquin to K4 News. Now, the issue of advocacy against domestic violence against women is clearly something that you're passionate about. The Dominica National Council of Women, they anticipate that you can use your role to influence them, to help them curtail this situation in Dominica as it relates to domestic violence. Is that possible when you take up your role as Commonwealth Secretary General?
Well, one of the things I've been absolutely clear about is that I want to do all I can to support gender balance and equality. And there is a methodology which I developed and I have shared with many countries. So, for instance, I shared the process with Spain. And Spain implemented the same approach that I had developed, and they cut familial homicide by 25% in 4 years. It saved lives and it saved money. I hope that we will be able to create Commonwealth models of best practice which people will be able to use to help them to implement appropriate change in their countries. And I believe that there's a real opportunity, because one of the tragic things is this is not something which is just a women's issue. It's, if you've ever spoken to a father or a brother who has had their child murdered by another man, it's heartbreaking. And so this issue is all of our issue, and I hope we will work together. I'm certainly going to do everything I can to keep this at the forefront of the agenda as it goes forward.
Okay, Baroness Scotland, could you bring us up to date as it relates to your role as the International Disaster Relief Coordinator?
Well, I have been talking both to DFID and to the other agencies, looking at what we could do in relation to getting a holistic plan for Dominica and coordinating better the opportunities for help and support. And I am hopeful that we may, together with the Prime Minister and having discussions with the Minister for Foreign Affairs, that we will be able to put something together in the new year. But it's very much in evolution, but I am very hopeful that we may be able to do something creative to assist Dominica.
Question. I'm curious as to the approach that you developed to deal with violence against women. Can you give us an insight?
Yes. One of the things that I realized is everybody always says, I haven't got any money. And I'd love to change things, but we don't have money. So I started off by looking at how much domestic violence was costing the country before. And when we looked at those figures, the United Kingdom figures was it was costing £23 billion a year. Now, at that stage, I was Deputy to the Home Secretary and I was the Criminal Justice Minister, and I was given the task of coordinating and coming up with a strategy. So we discovered it was £23 billion. What I then did is disaggregated that £23 billion, so I understood what every department of state was spending. I was criminal justice, and it was costing me, out of my budget, £1 billion domestic violence. It was 25% of all violent crime was domestic. So we then looked together as how much it was costing health, how much it was costing education, how much it was costing housing. So we then realized that if we came together, all the departments, we could probably cut the cost because each department was spending money on the same thing. We also realized that we needed to intervene in these cases faster. So we created something called the multi-agency risk assessment approach. And what that was looking at all the cases where women had died and looking at the similarities. So was there something similar in all those cases which were indicative that they were high risk? And we were able to work out which cases were high risk, which cases were medium risk, and which cases were low risk. And then all the agencies came together, and we had one definition. So instead of spending 4 or 5 hours having a conversation, we were able to say it's a high-risk case. And as soon as we knew it was a high-risk case, we knew what education needed to do, what health needed to do, what the police needed to do, what social service needed to do, and how we needed to protect that woman and come together. And it meant that for every £1 we spent, we saved 6. But because we were able to identify cases which were high risk early, we intervened early and we saved more lives. So for example, in London, and I was the minister responsible for London, 49 women died in 2003. Every murder was costing us about so me, really, I was the minister, it was my budget, it was £1.1 million out of my budget for every murder. So that was £50 million I spent on murders of women in London. By the time I left government in 2010, only 5 women died in London. So we'd saved, if you like, we went from 50 million to 5.5 million. But most of those women who would have died had 2 or 3 children. So can you imagine how devastating it is for those children's lives? And we were able, therefore, to save money, to save lives, but it was all about collaborating, working together, and making sure that it works. So the methodology is this. I always do a needs-based assessment, and this has to happen in every country. So what do you need? What's happening? What's the nature here? Then you do an audit. What have you got? So what is government doing? What is the church doing? What is the non-governmental agencies doing? Who's doing what in charity? Which individuals are helping? You can then say, so those are my needs. Here's what I got. You then got a gap analysis. So I know what I don't have. And then we made together a national plan, and everybody was involved. And that's why I say, if you want to change, everybody has to do it. We train policemen, we train judges, we train nurses, we train doctors, we train teachers. So all of us knew what we had to do. And working together, we saved the lives of the children, we saved the lives of the women. And anything they can do, we can do. Because, look, I was the Dominican who was devising this approach. So if I can do it for other people, I can sure help my own. And I want us to work together. But what I would say, as I said earlier, all things are possible, but we have to choose to do it. And it is a choice. People are always saying they have no money. You have enough money to do what you need to do if you choose to work together. And so I hope all of us, we will choose to work in partnership, come together. And I have been so touched when I came home after Erica. People from all over our island came to help each other. people from VIECAS coming to college, I mean, everybody. And so we in Dominica already have this spirit where when something happens, we help each other. So this is natural for us. If you want to know why do I collaborate in the way I do, it's because this is who I am. This is how I was brought up. This is how my Dominican heritage has affected me. So I think we in Dominica could be a beacon. We can do this. We just have to work together. And praise God.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah.
We'll just take one more.
Thank you. Baroness, we can feel your passion and we're grateful for that. And we know we've got a good person as head of the Commonwealth. And you mentioned some key issues that the Commonwealth and other countries are glad you're going to be tackling, you put on the front burner. Something that we haven't heard you say anything about, and quite frankly, didn't hear anything from your predecessor, who seemed to be a bit of a low-profile chap, is what's on everybody's mind in the world today, the question of terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we appreciate to date, we are fortunate, the big crises have been affecting the larger countries. But there are a lot of people who worry that when so-called terrorists can't penetrate the big countries, they will look at the underbelly to hit at the US and Europe and so on, start attacking tourist boats, for example, and so on. Do you see a role in dealing with that, or what would be your initial thoughts on tackling
No, there is
terrorism?
absolutely a role, and you may know that the heads have tasked me as the next Secretary General to look at this whole issue of radicalization and how we affect it. And they've also given a budget to try and help to enable us to do that together. And I think it is right that we look at the way in which our young are being radicalized by people who have a nihilist vision of the world. And I think we do have to ask questions as to why our young people are attracted to this. Most young people want to have a great life. Most young people want to fulfill what's best in them. And I've had the privilege of meeting young people right the way across the Commonwealth, and I've been stunned about how magnificent these young people are. They have vision and passion and beauty and talent. And I think we have to find ways, and that's why I was talking about the fact that 60% of the Commonwealth, and you know, our 53 countries have 33% of the world's population. So we're a third of the world's population. We have all races, all religions, all regions. So there's a real opportunity for us to look to see how we can bind those different races, different religions together. And I think the Caribbean has a lot to teach the rest of the world. Because if you look at the faces of our Caribbean islands, we are like a mini United Nations right in our islands. And we have known how to live peacefully with each other. And many of us are a mixture ourselves. If you look at most Caribbean people, we're an amalgam of different islands, different places. And so I think this is a big issue for us, and it really comes under my cover of good governance, which when I was talking about good governance earlier, it's very much these issues are going to be part of our good governance.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right.
You had said this would be the last question, madam. So if I could just switch my hat to the Grotto Home for the Homeless, of which Baroness Scotland has been a tremendous benefactor, and give this token of our appreciation, ma'am.
Oh, thank
It's a
you.
fruit basket which Saul for Erica on the way here. But it's because, you know, we've appreciated your concern, and we know that will continue even after you take
thank
your
you.
distinguished role.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the
No,
help
thank
you have
you.
been giving to us. And Ms. Keeper, I know you like to keep up with your meetings. As
Oh,
a
thank
newsman.
you. I've been interested in and participated in the Grotto for many, many years, and I'm very conscious of the great work that's done there, and I am determined to continue to do everything I can do to support all of these good causes. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to the media. Let me just take the opportunity to thank everyone who has made it here today. And as Baroness Scotland said earlier, and also the Minister of Foreign Affairs, there has been a team of people who have been working behind the scenes very hard.